Hello. I'm here today to give you a glimpse into my life as a deaf woman. I want to discuss a few life events, things that have given me the motivation and the determination to dare to defy and achieve what others might think is impossible. I have the blessing of having been born deaf. It's a gift from God. My parents were both hearing, but my grandparents on my father's side were both deaf. Their lives were marked with struggle and sacrifice because both of them were exclusively oral, which means in the deaf world that they were not given access to a signed language. That led to a life rife with frustration and struggle. My parents recognized that and took that into consideration when they were making decisions about my upbringing, and that I had to be exposed to a full language, sign language to be exact. Many people think that sign language is just another version of English, but it is its own language with a unique syntax and structure. It is not the same as English. So when my parents made that decision, that was their first step in helping me to dare to defy and achieve the so-called impossible. I was identified as deaf when I was 8 months old. When doctors approached my parents to give that information, they also said that I would never read beyond a 4th grade level. You can safely assume that the message that they were sending was that I would also never be college bound. Thankfully, my parents had the good sense to defy that doctor. The next step that my parents took was to build a strong support system for me. They dared to defy because I can't do that alone. It's too much of a challenge to dare to defy alone. You need to have a strong support system of people with shared values and beliefs. So my parents would bring me to different events in different places, one of which was Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. There, we met other families who had deaf children and forged strong bonds with those families and their shared values. I was also given the crucial exposure to deaf adults that I needed. They were my role models, and they taught me about my own deaf culture. Those early days of my life had a strong impact on who I am now as a deaf woman. Nelson Mandela has this quote that's so appropriate. "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." And remember what the doctors told my parents? I already had a strong foundation with a signed language. The next step was to learn English. It was essential to be bilingual and literate. My parents felt that the best way to achieve that was through education and instilling a love of reading. When I was young, I took to reading. I would read book after book, and it opened my mind to the world. Now, my parents felt that education wasn't limited to the classroom. Education was present in the world around us. So growing up, they would take my sister and I every summer on family camping trips all over the US. And one year, we even flew to Europe for vacation. Those trips allowed me to see and experience famous national historic landmarks And the places that I had learned about in the books that I had read allowed me to make connections with those places that I was experiencing. I did learn in the classroom, but it was connected to my experiences in real life. So do you see what's happening? By not being sheltered, all of those synapses allowed my brain to grow and develop because my parents dared to defy the doctors. And that allowed me to achieve what other people might think was impossible. So with 2 languages and all of my worldly experiences, I was able to thrive. My school years were full of learning and continuing to exceed expectations of me. I went to the University of Virginia, where I graduated with honors. And after that, I went on to get my master's degree. This solidified my center and identity as a deaf woman, ready to take on the world. Now, in the years since, and still to this day in 2016, from time to time, I'll encounter people who seem to have these stereotypical low expectations of what's possible for deaf people. I've had someone ask me if I need assistance crossing the street. I've had someone else ask me if I need someone to drive me to the grocery store and help me do my shopping. There's even a doctor who said straight to my face that he assumed that I couldn't work because I was deaf. I've been dejected, I've been treated unfairly, and I'm not alone in those experiences. All over the world, there are deaf people who go through the same thing and have the same stories of false assumptions placed on them by society. But throughout my life, and having my strong center, I'm able to greet those individuals with a smile and defy their incorrect assumptions, to reframe and give them a full picture of the possibilities available to deaf people. So each person, including myself, has that one thing inside them that really stirs up unsettled feelings and puts them out of their comfort zone. Each person also has a choice. They can stay in that comfort zone and move through their daily life, or they can decide to take a risk, step out of that comfort zone, and become stronger because of it. Throughout everything I've learned in my life, I've known that it will be full of obstacles and challenges, but you have to be strong to face those challenges. Every time I take a step out of my comfort zone, I become stronger and my life becomes richer. Let me give you an example. I've always been an athlete throughout my life, but cycling has always proved to be a mental challenge for me. There's just something about being on that bike with 2 narrow wheels locked into these pedals on a busy road, not knowing when cars are going to come up behind me, that makes me feel very nervous and out of my comfort zone. 3 years ago, I got involved with triathlons. And that woman who had previously been seen on the road with white knuckles, limiting myself to 10 or 15 miles at a time, is now gone. This year, I made the decision to challenge myself and do something that I thought would be impossible. I signed up for a half Ironman distance triathlon. The biking leg alone was 56 miles. So, for 5 grueling months, I trained and trained some more Slowly, my fears were allayed. I was able to increase my endurance, and 2 weeks ago, I successfully completed the Niagara Falls Barrelman Triathlon. You see in the picture, I'm coming around the bend on my bike, ready to dismount with a huge grin and no white knuckles. I was so proud of myself for having challenged myself to step out of that box, and I feel like my life has gotten better because of it. So for the last lesson today, we have a well-known proverb. Give a man a fish, and you'll feed him for a day. But teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. Everything that I've learned and experienced, all the gifts from God that I've gotten, are things I shouldn't keep to myself. That wouldn't be right. I've made the decision to share with all of you, and you too can dare to defy and achieve what others may think is impossible for you. Every day, I love going to work. I walk into my classroom, I see these enthusiastic young minds ready to learn. I chose to become an educator so that I can influence these students in the way that they see the world. Here at Onondaga Community College, students come into my classroom and I encourage them to develop and become future allies of the deaf community. The way I do that is by giving a part of myself as a deaf woman, as an example for them, and inviting them into my deaf world. The things that they learn and begin to understand, like what's really possible for deaf people and what it means to be deaf. Their learning isn't done when they leave my classroom. They go out into the world, and when they hear society's false assumptions and lowered expectations, negative stereotypes, they're able to reframe those. They become our allies. And in the end, the world is a better place for all of us because of it. Last, but certainly not least, my husband and I choose to live our lives every day, setting an example for our 3 beautiful children. Every day we challenge ourselves to work hard and to achieve our own goals. Our children watch us and they learn from that. Each of them are unique individuals. Only God knows what the future holds for each of them. The best thing that I can do is to just continue to work hard and show them and help guide them to learn how to achieve their own goals. So, I hope that all of you will take the time today, tomorrow, next week, to think to yourselves what dare to defy means. What does it mean to you? Don't be afraid to achieve what you may think is impossible. I'm going to close with one last quote from Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.